In 2012, the World Health Organization attributed 3.7 million deaths to ambient air pollution and 4.3 million deaths to household air pollution. That is pollution caused by mostly open air fires. This, unfortunately, is one incident which is still found in Nigeria. One area which is still constant is in Okoba area of Lagos, southwest of Nigeria, and residents have asked for intervention from the state government. Our correspondent, Amy Thompson, reports.
About 6 months after Channels Television responded to the complaints of the residents of the Monke Oyelodun estate in New Okoba area because of the activities in the abattoir, which they share a fence with, residents say, if anything, the problem is even worse.
Most of the time, the smell and the smokes come into our flat to disturb our peace. Like now, if you take a look at my children, for the past 3 years, we have been taking them to the hospital due to this smoke because they are inhaling it. Sometimes we treat typhoid, sometimes malaria. Normally, these children, they don't fall sick. But since we came here, it has been from one hospital to the other. Then the other time, if you see our flat, we just painted now to 2 months now. And the place is already dark because of the smoke that is coming in.
Although there was a response from the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA, it didn't seem to do much to deter the negative activities.
Letters has been written and sent out. Even Channels TV was here some time ago to cover this same issue, but it continues. Nothing has been done about it.
As I'm speaking with you, we have an area office there. It's not just the signpost, but it is inside abattoir, not outside. And all the 15 officers are scientific officers. So go down there, and the Ministry of Agriculture, together with LASEPA, we have developed what we call an environmental management plan for that place.
But even as LASEPA plans this long-term solution, the health implication continues to scare residents, especially as it affects the lungs.
When the lungs is packed full of all these things, there is not enough gaseous exchange. And like I told you, then there is not enough oxygen in the system. The body organs starts depreciating. They're not functioning maximally again.
Beyond the challenge which residents here face, Nigerians as a whole have to deal with other forms of pollution like air, noise and water through industrial activities as well as oil and gas, which affects the land and agricultural produce. Amy Thompson reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, joining me on the news at 10 is Dr. Femi Oyediran, an environmental management expert, to discuss the issue of air pollution. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. As a public health analyst, and having, of course, listened to the reports that we just aired now of Moke area, estate in Agege to be precise, what are the medical risks that the people around there face, considering the abattoir and then the horns that have been burnt? Is this toxic enough to cause concerns?
Thank you very much, Gimba. The incidents that we have at Agege, abattoir, and the same thing that we experience at Okobaba, is a serious thing for the environment and for the people that reside in the area. Basically, we have two major issues to discuss about it. We have the environmental impact and we have the health impact. What is it that it causes for the people in the neighborhood? What's happening to their health? And what happens to the environment in general? It's a serious thing that we have to look at. There's a lot of things that occur that go along with release from abattoir and one from the incineration or the burning of logs of wood or sawdust that we have at Okoba. The abattoir issue, for instance, we have solid waste problem, we have the wastewater problem, and we have the air pollution that we have in the area, which is common to that area. But the case of Okoba, for instance, we only talk about air pollution. Okay, and air pollution is just the introduction of a substance into the atmosphere. Once it is introduced to the atmosphere, it gets to the people, because there's no boundary in the air. And because you cannot delineate that, yes, this is where my own boundary is in the air, then that means you have to take care of it. And what are the various things that we have going into the air when things are born? Essentially, you have combustion of organic compound is a burning of organic compound. And so when carbon is burned, it should give you carbon dioxide and water. But that is not the only thing that we have. We have other things that go along with it. And this includes carbon monoxide. We have the release of carbon dioxide. We have the release of sulfur dioxide. We have release of nitrogen oxide. We have release of volatile organic compounds. And a lot of all these go into the atmosphere. When we get to the atmosphere, they have deleterious effect on the people that live in that environment.
For example, how bad could that get? What kind of diseases are they exposed to and the risks?
Now, some are not looking at disease causing implications now. There you could look at instance where you have a cancer, incidence of cancer, because some of these substances that you have in the atmosphere are carcinogenic. For instance, when you go to the filling station and you buy fuel, the vapor that comes out from it contains benzene, and benzene is carcinogenic. But people inhale with pleasure when they go to fill their car. And so these are the type of things that we have. We have some of these hydrocarbons and volatile organic compounds in the emissions that comes from all these combustions that we have. And when it now gets into the atmosphere, because it is getting to you, to your lungs directly, that means it's affecting the system itself. And on the long run, you are going to feel the impact.
What must be done to get the government to look into this with a view to compelling the people around there and warning them of the dangers, or even better, get the government to act to stop this?
Yeah, I think, for instance, Lagos State is trying to do certain things in this regard. But the problem is that we, the citizenry, ourselves really need to know that this is dangerous to our health. And because people don't really know, even at home, for instance, we have indoor air pollution, where people cook with charcoal. And when you cook with charcoal, you have carbon monoxide. And when this carbon monoxide gets into the blood, we have what we call the carboxyhemoglobin forming, and somebody might even die in the process. We have instances like that. And so the people really need to know that, yes, we have this releases from into the environment, but they themselves need to do certain things. Then the government, on the other hand, need to enforce the laws. They are enabling laws. Both at the national have laws on this. Lagos State government do as well, especially with other state governments. But they need to enforce these laws so that people will not commit suicide the way they are doing.
Let's look at the broader picture now. We know that the European Union has tagged noise as the leading environmental pollutant. Should Nigeria be worried about noise pollution as well? How does this affect our people?
Noise pollution is a serious problem that we have at hand. But because of our habits, we seem to have adapted to that noise. Now, for instance, when the law says that, yes, you shouldn't be exposed to more than 90 decibel of noise for 8-hour exposure. But we have people that even work in environments that are higher than that. So people need to be conscious of what they are exposed to. People need to know what they are into. For instance, when you work in an environment, a noisy environment, and you're not protected, one of the establishment probably won't even take care of you. By the time you leave the establishment, you are the one that's going to be at the crunch of the matter. And so we ourselves really need to know that, yes, this is going to affect me, and we need to take action as at when due.
I want to thank you so much indeed, Dr. Femi Oyediro, an environmental management expert. Thank you so much indeed for your time and your thoughts. Residents in Edo State living along the River Benue coastline are appealing to the federal government to speed up its resettlement plans in the event of a repeat of the 2012 flood disaster. The people who made the appeal following an Edo State government alert urging them to relocate from their communities say they do not know where to go to, as alternative arrangements have not been made to accommodate them.
The 2012 flooding of coastal communities was no doubt a monumental national disaster, as it led to the loss of lives as well as property worth millions of naira. A recent notice by the government of Cameroon to open its dams again has triggered concerns, and Edo State government in turn issued an alert asking the people in the flood-prone areas to relocate to the upland in order to avert another disaster anytime the flood comes.
First of all, sensitize them, put them on alert, and this we have done severally on radio, television, so as to put them on alert. But you know that typical of our people, if they do not see the thing happening, they are not ready to move.
But for these residents of Anegbete, Udaba and Ilushi, that might be a bit difficult.
Don't make attempt to move. We look. If it come, we go to Fuga, where we stay before.
We don't know how possible it will be for the people to move. And I think because of the fact that we don't see the efforts that the governments have made in terms of providing alternatives, it's not likely that people will likely be ready to move.
The federal government, through the Presidential Committee on Flood Relief, is building this facility to serve as a temporary camp where those affected by flood are meant to be sheltered. The contractor speaks more on the project.
With our working schedule, the program chart, by ending of October or 1st or 2nd November, we should be able to round it up and hand it over to the federal government.
The chairman of the Edo State Emergency Management Agency, Maimuna Momodu, agrees that more needs to be done to mitigate the impact of flood on residents of the affected communities.
When I asked questions, I was made to understand that a lot of the people that pledged had not redeemed their pledge. So they do not have the resources to spread across the 3 local government area at once. Hence, they started with the Isako Central, Ogumeri precisely. But I would have thought by now they ought to be faster than the level they are now. But I'm sure with these levels of rains and all that, maybe that will ginger them to be faster, because we won't be happy that what we are trying to prevent by providing that piece of land, it occurs again that we have to move them to schools, which we do not want to do. Those Ilushi area who are directly at the coast of River Niger, we still have to give them our schools to stay. Because we will not say because federal government has not started something, and we'll leave them to their own, to look for where to stay by themselves.
Laudable as that may seem, all these people pray for is that the flood just does not come.
Well, joining me on the news at 10 is Professor Oladapo Afolabi to have a clearer understanding of the issues of floods in Edo State. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on the news at 10. Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. That's the word the Edo State government is telling people living along the coastal areas close to the river Benue. The problem, however, is that the people say we don't have anywhere else to go, and the government hasn't provided us with an alternative a shelter. Where does that take us next?
Well, what government has done, I think government is on the right track. The first thing on issues like this is awareness and making provisions for shelter, where to relocate potentially impacted citizens. That may suffice in the short term, but in the long term, what is really required is that the two governments, government of Nigeria and the government of Cameroon, will have to work together so that they have a joint emergency and response team, possibly have a linkable national communications, which is an instrument that is supposed to be developed by all nations in response to climate change issues, which could be related to this. And also, in the long run, it would be good to have flood breakers, such as dams, to be built along the lines.
Our apologies there. We just lost that communication link between Professor Oladapo Afolabi. Not to worry though, we'll try to get him back as soon as we can. Coming up next is business news, and we've been joined by Anwado, who will take us through with the details. That's after now. Stay with us.
Welcome to Business News. The fiscal policies of the central bank have been described as quite patriotic enough to manage the country's macroeconomic variables. Well, this is coming from members of the Financial Services Group of the Group Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. At a forum of the group in Lagos, Nigerians are encouraged to adjust to the realities of the post-oil economy and improve on their sustainability strategies.
Seen as a fallout of the drop in Nigeria's revenue that is occasioned by the fall in the crude oil prices. As we are aware, obviously, oil revenue constitutes a large source of our foreign exchange earnings, and is also what we use in funding our imports. So when you have such a drastic fall in your revenue, the only natural thing is now to watch what exactly are you also doing to curtail your own importation. So I think all the policies that we are seeing, first of all, is to conserve Nigeria's foreign exchange, to ensure that our foreign reserves stay healthy. Also see what you can do to promote export, and what you can also do to obviously curtail importation, especially of goods that are not critical to the Nigerian economy.
Well, experts in the planning and economy field want the federal government to intensify public policies with improvements in its planning structure. Explaining the need for government to have a developmental philosophy, planning experts Mr. McCarthy Ijebo says that with proper planning, policy sustainability as a result of change in administration can work out effectively. According to him, advanced economic planning also has the potential for inclusive benefits across the various classes of the nation.
A nation, we don't have what we call philosophy. It is when you have a philosophy, developmental philosophy, that everybody will buy into. It is from that philosophy that every successful government that will come will be drawing an agenda for their own growth, but not living the philosophy. The market woman doesn't even know where the government is going. The businessman doesn't even know where the government is going. So planning is not just related to only one individual. Government has to plan. And during the former late president, Yaradua, he was the person that now finally gave a full-fledged ministry in planning. In those days, it used to be National Planning Commission. But now, government has recognized the position and in place of planning. Planning is important. And that means it has to cut across every sector, not just limiting it to an individual. It has to do individual, corporate, whether state, local government area. So what we are trying to say is that in Nigeria as a nation, we must have commonality in our planning process and procedure.
Well, that's a package on business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Anne Nwawodo Gimba. We'll be back with the rest of the news at 10.
Next on the news at 10, the Super Eagles of Nigeria battle to a goalless draw against Tanzania in the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations Cup qualifiers. Join us again.